coming. My name's Emma. Step to the side.
That's pretty true.
Not break anything. Okay, so welcome to our presentation today. We're going to welcome Ozzie Reif. He fell in love with the BWCAW on his first canoe trip at the age of 16. Hailing from Delaware, he's been fortunate enough to call Ely home for the past 5 years. He's found a passionate and vibrant community in Ely, which also happens to provide a great base for his trips into the wilderness and Superior National Forest. Ozzie's passionate about creating functional art that blends his love of the outdoors and his passion for making. He is on the board of the Ely Folk School and the Ely Northwoods Chapter of the North County Trail Association. A lot of northern things. When he's not out canoeing and skiing, he can be found running a small business, the Ely Mitten Project. So please give Ozzie a warm welcome.
Awesome, thanks Emma, and thanks everybody for being here to hear what I have to say about the woods. Yeah, she was saying I live over in Ely. I kind of thought up this project, I guess over the course of a couple of years, but kind of put the pieces all together this past winter, and just really wanted to try to do some natural trip using things that I've made entirely. And then I saw that the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council had some grants available for independent artists, and it was like maybe it could be an art project. It's kind of interesting thinking about what is or isn't art. It's like, is a bag used to hold a bunch of food, is that art? I don't know, but I got a grant to make art and I made a bag that holds food. I think some of the things, it's like a little bit more clear, like a basket, like as it feels more arty. But yeah, it's hard to define those things. It's something that I learned in this process of creating them all. In my day-to-day life, I do a lot of sewing. I have the Ely Mitten Project as a small business I run over in Ely, making really cold weather mittens. So like Anna Hennessy's, some in the Iditarod, and a couple other folks have had them in Antarctica and things like that. They're also good for this area too. But I really enjoy sewing and creating things and building things. And it seemed like a fun kind of challenge to make everything I would need to hike across the Boundary Waters. And I just got off the Kekekabic trail yesterday. So that was 40 miles down. Originally my goal was to do the Kekekabic and border route trails. So it's like 110-ish miles total. I haven't started the border route yet. This is kind of a stopover, and then I'll start that tomorrow, hopefully. I'm having some like right leg pain, so I'm doing a bunch of ice and like medicines and things. So I'm probably going to truncate the border route section a little bit. I think the Gunflint Trail might have me beat. So I think currently I'm looking at doing maybe like 30 miles of that 65 over the next like 5 days. So still a sizable hike, but a little bit less than my initial goal. And that's okay, because art can change. So yeah, to kick things off, I had put in my application that I was going to make like 15 different pieces of gear. I ended up making a couple more, some duplicates of some things like shoes, and the whole process was kind of a big learning curve because I'm pretty comfortable with like sewn goods, but when I was thinking about how to make a pot, it's like I haven't made a pot before, and you can't sew a pot very well. So that was a cool new skill to learn and practice. I think I found a lot of new mediums and art forms that I'd like to explore more through this process that are unfortunately time-consuming and expensive. So I'll have to kind of narrow things down and see if I want to keep making baskets or copperwork or things like that. But yeah, so we can jump into the gear. I'll kind of intersperse experiences with the gear from the past 40 miles into the talk. And if anyone has any questions about something in specific or some piece of the trail that you're curious about or anything else, just jump in, raise your hand, do whatever. And I'll pass stuff around too, so you can check it out. When it gets to the back, just feel free to make a pile. I forgot that piece of my first talk over in Ely, and somebody just had a bunch of things at the end. Yeah.
So you held up the pot. What's it made of?
Yeah, so we can use that as a great transition.
Oh.
So the pot is made of copper. I purchased a sheet of copper and then hit it a bunch of times with the hammer to get like a round form. I found a lot of this process was hitting stuff with hammers, both the pot and the basket. It was a lot of forearm workout. And yeah, so it's kind of a thin gauge copper. It kind of holds its shape pretty well. I've had it squished in that pack a couple times, and it's not kind of dented in or anything. Cooks really nicely over a fire. I tested it out on a stove initially, and I'd say I'm pretty happy with the performance. It cleans nicely. I was a little afraid of getting food stuck in some of the grooves and things, and that hasn't been the case so far. So it's been pretty functional. Yeah, I tried initially making a pot out of a copper pipe, and to draw that out big enough to be a pot wasn't going so well. So I got a bigger piece of metal to start out with, and that helped a lot. So I'll pass that around. It doesn't have a flat bottom, which initially I was like, oh, I can put the pot on rocks and cook over the fire with it. Forgetting that the Forest Service has all the fire grates on all the fire pits. So it doesn't sit super well on a flat piece of metal over the fire. So I've had to be a little precarious with balancing it. But yeah, it's been working well. I had initially thought of doing a clay pot, and then I talked to a number of potters in the Ely area, and all of them were like, absolutely don't do a clay pot. So that's kind of a neat part of this process, was getting to talk with other artists and professionals in these various spheres that I kind of blended to get their input on things, and hear when I had a really bad idea for something. And I'm really thankful because this hasn't cracked, and it probably won't crack. And I think it's lighter than clay would have been. Onto some more cooking things. I made a little spoon out of basswood. I tried to use as many pieces of the same pieces of wood as I could. So my cork for my water bottle that I'll talk about later is also made of the same piece of basswood. It's been working well. It is a little deep, so it's kind of hard to get all the food out of it. But I'm pretty pleased with it. There's kind of a Big Dipper constellation on there. So if I get lost, I can just use that as my compass. And I haven't gotten too lost yet, thankfully.
It's good to hear.
The food bag is this big yellow one. I won't pass it around because it's got like 15 pounds of food and it still has way too much food. If anyone wants some after this, I'm going to try to hand some off. Yeah, I brought a bunch of wild rice, and it's much more filling than you think, and then you have way too much. And so if anyone wants a pound, let me know. That's been great. I've been hanging it in a tree every night, all the way 12 feet up, and I haven't had a bear inside of it or around it yet, so that's been cool. And then not cooking, but still bag related. This is kind of my, for everything I didn't make for the trip, it goes in this bag. So like my toilet paper, or my headlamp, or my toothbrush, or I've got like a power brick for my phone so I can take pictures and things still. And then like a GPS unit and a little first aid kit. All the things that make my parents and family happy when I'm out there. So this is like a super tightly woven cotton. So it's essentially waterproof, or as waterproof as you can get using non-synthetic materials. And that was kind of the goal of this project, is to use as many natural fibers and materials as possible. So the sleep system I've got over here, I won't pass it around, but afterwards come check things out. It's kind of like a bivy sack thing. It's got this outer wax canvas layer, some drawstrings to tighten it down, and then an inner just wool blanket that's formed into a sleeping bag. And they separate so you can dry them as needed and things. So most of the way up, but it's got like kind of a sleeping bag opening to it, and then a cinch cord on top, which has been really helpful for when the mosquitoes come out. And I can just cinch it down and lay face first on the ground. They've been pretty good though so far. There's one night that they were bad, but the rest of the nights haven't been too bad. And then a tarp, again a wax canvas, just has grommets in the sides and the corners. It's been really useful one time so far. One time it wasn't up when it would have been useful. That was the first night, and the first morning I woke up and it just started drizzling. I was like, ah man. So I kind of threw it over everything, but I didn't have it set up at that point. But pretty pleased with that. It's fairly lightweight for what it is, but definitely heavier than a nylon tarp would be. Also a nylon around. Yeah.
So you're sleeping right on the ground without a sleeping bag?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's been okay?
It's been okay, yeah. It's been good. There's one night that was a little bit cold. And once I get to some of the clothes, I'll show you some of the warm layers. And I just put those on and it was okay. But yeah, it's a rocky world out there. And the hiking campsites in particular I found aren't the nicest campsites in the Boundary Waters. Don't let that deter you, but they're they seem especially bumpy, but that could just be because I don't have a sleeping pad. But yeah, they're really cool sites. A lot of them you can't get to by canoe, so it's kind of a unique opportunity to see them on foot. That's just kind of the tarp laid out, and then a bit of the process of sewing the corners into the tarp. Yeah.
Is that just for extra support when a string's pulling on it?
Yeah, just extra like reinforcement material. Yeah. And it hasn't blown out yet, so it's working. On to some of the clothes. That bottom right picture is the materials that I made the shoes out of. I've got a brand new brain tans and smokes hide. So the bottom piece is moose hide. It's like a moose shoulder from Canada. And then the top piece is buckskin. I believe it's a local like Ely deer that was turned into that. So as local as you can get on those materials, which is super cool. The shoes up there are the ones that I've been wearing to hike in. This is what they look like now. Me and Mark, the guy that made the materials, have kind of been discussing since I first reached out to him about the project, like how long they're gonna last, if they're gonna blow up, that sort of thing. He makes mucklucks out of the same moose hide, and the bottoms wear out. So we were kind of unsure how far I would get in one pair, hence the reason for doing a second pair, and then I've got extra materials to patch them up. But after 40 miles, there are no holes. You can't see the sunlight anywhere through them. They're definitely kind of crinkly, but they're holding up quite well. They kind of lace up, as you can see, sort of like mucklucks as well. Yeah, I'll pass those around. Feel free to not grab them if you don't want to. They're just kind of beaver mucky. It's mostly rained out. You guys want to see them? Should we start it? Sure. Yeah. Okay.
How do your feet feel after
I
wearing?
have a question.
Yeah.
When you give a lecture, what do you wear?
I'm not wearing anything right now because I gotta show things out. I didn't feel the same way about my clothes, luckily, so we're keeping those on. Yeah, they're quite thin. I wear barefoot shoes generally, like when I'm doing stuff in the other parts of my life. These are thinner than those for sure. And the first like 5 miles were quite miserable. I have definitely kicked every single rock between here and Ely, at least once. There's a lot of like pointy little stick things too that are uncomfortable to step on. And then some of the muddy areas have like weird pointy rocks in them also. Moss is really nice, and then I was mentioning earlier that there were a bunch of logs that bears had torn apart on the trail. And that kind of created like a mulchy surface, and that was really nice to walk on too for the 5 feet around the log. But yeah, kind of as I was going stir crazy out there, I made up a fun song about all the things that were not so fun to step on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How do they dry out? I mean, that's gotta be.
Yeah, they eventually dry out. Today was really good. They were fully soaked when I came out yesterday, and I was from like here down as well. They were drying okay, just kind of overnight, just from like the irregular puddles and dew and things. But they're definitely pretty moist for big parts of the day.
Yeah, I mean, when you're walking through a puddle and you can't do most of stuff, your bare feet must get pretty wet. So,
Yes. Yeah, the hide is really incredible material when it's smoked and brain tanned. It's very different than commercially processed leather. So it has like water durability properties, so it doesn't disintegrate when it gets wet like some things, and it remains pretty pliable and stuff. There's like science behind the smoke interacting with the fats in the leather, but they get wet for sure. They're not waterproof.
totally like every other shoe.
It was kind of an interesting thing because I thought about like, oh, maybe when one pair gets wet, I can switch to the other pair and let that pair dry. And just the amount of moisture out there, you can't feasibly do that. So I've been keeping this other pair as my like dry or camp shoes, and that's been working pretty well to get to camp and switch these on and do my camp chores with these shoes on. And these are kind of a more traditional moccasin style. You can see they're based on Guige House's grandmother's gift book. She made a moccasin pattern book she's done at Fond du Lac. So I just want to make sure that's acknowledged that I didn't invent this style of shoe. I put some blueberries on the tongues because I made them during blueberry season, and I was really thinking about blueberries. They're a little nicer, a little cleaner. They have a really great smoky smell to them still. They're not quite as beavery smelling.
They don't seem to have any laces to keep them on your feet. How do you keep them on?
Yeah, so those guys, they kind of stay on without laces.
Okay.
And then I was using them today just going around because I didn't want to wear the wet hiking ones. And I took the laces off of those and used those on these, and that worked pretty well. But that's a good question. And then I have my sock things. They're kind of like a little wool bootie. I haven't been using them with the boots. They're very similar shape, so theoretically I could. I didn't want to just get them wet every day though, because that would be just another wet layer of something. So I've been using these as kind of an additional layer in the sleeping bag if it gets cold. The bottoms are like 2 layers if it's really nice wool, and then they've got a fun little closure on them. So yeah, kind of goofy, like Teletubby shoe things, I feel like. But really cozy when it's one of those cool nights hitting the 50s. What else about shoes? I definitely feel all the rocks. I think the first day I was like hitting my left foot on a lot of stuff. I'm right-footed. So I think I was just not paying attention enough over there. And I think I ended up like catching myself more with my right side. So I ended up straining, pulling something in my right ankle shin area. So not directly because of the shoes, but related to the footwear. I think it'd be a much more enjoyable time on the trail with proper footwear. Definitely not recommending anyone try it like this. Yeah.
Have you had to cross any beaver dams?
Yeah.
How is it with, that kind of footwear, and then I see you do have a walking stick.
Yeah, so a lot of the beaver dams, I guess there are I think I counted 5 beaver crossings. The Keck Trail, a lot of the bridges are just beaver dams, which is really unique and pretty cool. Really fun to walk across one and see that it's actually a trail on the beaver dam. And a lot of them are trails. It's like the top is muddy and has grass and stuff growing on it. So it's like a pretty good surface to walk on. There's one fresh one. They did a reroute out by Seahorse Lake this summer actually. And so the trail crosses like a brand new beaver dam. And that's all just these like wrist-sized logs all over every direction. And that was quite uncomfortable to walk on with these shoes. It wouldn't be so bad with good footwear though. Yeah. Yeah, some more clothes things. This has been a great hoodie to wear. Again, it's a blanket that was designed by Guige down at Fond du Lac, and kind of styled after like an Empire wool and canvas, like boreal anorak he makes down in Duluth. So kind of a blending of some local creators. It's got some antler toggles, so I cut pieces off an antler as the closure. It's like, I think it's like a 5-pound blanket, so it's super heavy in the pack, but so cozy. It's a merino wool, and I've been throwing that on in the sleeping bag at night also when it's cold, and that's a real lifesaver there. And I was wearing it all morning this morning with the fog. It was really nice. Yeah, it's a great pattern that she makes. I really loved it. Yeah, and the stuff I'm wearing, got the shirt. It's just a hemp. So two-sided, got the brown side, the green side. I wasn't trying to be super camouflage when I did the materials for the clothes, but I was using stuff that I had on the hemp side, and started looking like a tree, I guess. The green is like half as heavy material as the brown is. The brown's a much denser fabric. I was hoping it would be good to stop mosquitoes. It's not good to stop mosquitoes, but it's quite durable. And you can see kind of on my lower back, there's a spot where the basket's been rubbing, and it's definitely kind of wearing into the fabric some, which is, I think it's really neat. And it makes me glad that I used the heavy material for it. Yeah, it's based on just like a t-shirt, and most t-shirts are kind of stretchy. This hemp is like a woven material instead of a knit material, so it's not stretchy at all. It's more of like a canvas. So it's a little bit uncomfortable getting it off. And when it's real sweaty, it's a little bit scary trying to pull it off, and I get kind of stuck in there. So I've had to wait a couple times to dry out before I take my shirt off. So that part's been a little less than ideal. Yeah, the pants, same thing. The green is like a lighter weight hemp, and the brown is the heavier weight hemp. They've been really great for all the brush out there. It's super brushy in spots, and there's some like thorn bushes and things, especially kind of near the beaver areas where it's real wet. You get the raspberries and stuff growing in, and I haven't had anything penetrate down the legs, anything like that. Yeah, and they're just pretty nice pants. I did like an antler closure, so just has like cross sections of antlers that were the buttons on the pants, and I lost 2 of them yesterday after I got out of the woods though. So you can see those if you want. They're kind of neat. I spent some time working at Wintergreen Northern Wear in Ely. That's where I got into sewing, and Sue Shirky gave me those when she was retiring, and they used them on the jackets back in like the 90s or something. So I thought it'd be cool to use them, and they fell off. So I'll have to repurpose them. But it's nice I didn't actually lose them. They just aren't attached, and the belt is doing extra duty now. The hat, kind of a fun, like multi-purpose, like hot weather and cold weather hat. I feel like it's kind of like one of the little pinwheel hats with the different colors going on. It's just scrap wool. Yeah. I did a floppy brim to it, so I can wear that when I'm sleeping also, which is, I've had to do that like twice. It's kind of nice to put it on, and it keeps the mosquitoes from getting the top of the dome. Yeah, that's a good little hat. I like it. And then shorts / underwear, they're just wool. It's kind of a cool like high-tech stretchy wool bottom hat, and then a nice merino waistband with a drawstring. They've been good. I like them. Yeah. Over in Ely, they all got to touch my underwear. You guys don't need to. This is kind of getting into some of the things I didn't make. I didn't do the blade on this knife. That's one of the pieces that I didn't really delve into, is kind of forging things. I did the copper pot, but I didn't really experiment much with metalworking other than that for this project. So it's a blade produced in Sweden, I believe. But I did the handle out of the same ash as the basket, and it's a piece of corn. It has a birch bark sheath on there that you can just pop off if you want. It's a sharp knife, so don't hurt yourself with it when it comes around. It's the blade shape is curved on it. It's called a crooked knife. It's kind of a traditional like canoe making, paddle making knife that's been used in this area and kind of further north for a long time. The Anishinaabe name for that is a Wogikaman. They're also, pretty common. It's basically like a one-handed draw knife, so you use it backwards toward yourself, which is very counterintuitive to most knife working. But they're really cool, really fun knives. And then rope, I've got a couple different kinds of rope. The smaller white stuff is cotton rope, just twisted from smaller pieces of rope. And that's kind of on my bedroll. I've got some in my water bottle. And then some of the more fun rope, I think, is this wool rope. I was out on a sailing trip with some folks on Superior a couple weeks ago, and they've got this like traditional like Viking era ship. They use a lot of wool rope on that, and I was kind of inspired to make my own, and it's really has a wonderful hand feel. I was a little concerned about like using it as a bear rope, going over a branch and stuff and abrading it, because it's just a bunch of pieces of yarn. And that hasn't been a problem. The bear ropes have been holding up quite well, which is a little surprising to me. But yeah, it's fun stuff.
So you're saying you took your chances?
Yeah, I figured I'd see what happened. I have like extra leather that I was gonna kind of reinforce parts of it with if I needed to, and I didn't need to. For the long pieces, I had to find a fire tower to dangle it off of for twisting it, because my steps at my house are only so tall. So that was pretty cool. I've got 6 of the shorter strands. Those have been really good for tying out my tarp. I've been tying the sleep system on top of the pack with one of them. Very pleased with how that's been working. And the basket. I think it's kind of like the centerpiece item for all of this. It's made of black ash, harvested in Ely. It's really fun to construct. I've wanted to try a basket before, and it was a neat opportunity to do something other than just like a canvas pack. It does have some weight to it, but I wouldn't say it's like super heavy for what it is. There's a bit of the process up here. Are you able to click on the video?
Yeah.
So the video is kind of what the initial step is. So yeah, if you've never pounded ash before, that's what it looks like. You can use a hammer or the back of an axe, or people use like log, mallet kind of things.
Pounding a wedge into it?
No, so that's just using the back of the axe and just hitting the log all the way down its length. So you just go back and forth all the way down the log.
When it already started in that picture.
Yeah, and so what happens is these are just the growth rings. And it crushes, I don't remember if it's the summer or the winter growth ring gets crushed. And then the other one pops off in these nice long strips that are all uniform thickness. And then you can further split those down to make thinner ones. And then you kind of roll them up into a big old bundle. And then you can store those for, I think, an indefinite period of time, and then re-wet them to weave with them. And then that's kind of the base of the basket forming, and then putting the rims on the basket. I got to do some steam bending of the ash. But yeah, everything in this basket is made from the same tree. The top is just really thin strand going around, and then the harness is the same hemp as my pants. And that's been working pretty well. I had a bit of a blowout on the corners where it meets in, so I spent some of today fixing that. And it wasn't catastrophic. I didn't lose the whole pack or anything, which I'm quite thankful for. But yeah, check that out. It's a really neat material. I've friends like go up to the Hudson Bay with a basket and say that like you can sit on them and they survive, kind of thing. So quite durable for just being a very, very thin piece of wood. Yeah.
So did you have to re-moisturize those strips? It seems like they would quite dry out.
Yeah, yes, they definitely dry out when they're like that.
Just water or what?
Yeah, you can put them in a lake, or I just had a bucket in my yard that I'd soak them in. It doesn't take super long for them to become bendy again.
And ash is, you think, the best until they're all disappeared in our region?
Yeah, so that's the problem is, out in the Northeast, they're mostly gone away. That's where a lot of traditional basket making was happening. So they're not really using the black ash much out there anymore. And it's working. The emerald ash borer is the reason for that. It's working its way over here. It's down in Cokay already. So it's gonna be up here before too long, especially with climate change and things like that. So kind of unfortunate. There are other types of ash that people are using, and people are replanting the black ash forest out east. But it's going to be 70 or 80 years till those trees are mature again. So quite sad.
For pounding ash, is it just the youngest growth that will strip off like that, or can you do every ring?
No, yes, you can do all of it all the way to the core. You can see on this one the darker rings. Kind of the midsection is lighter than above it, and below it's a little darker. The darker part is actually kind of this inner hardwood in there. So you get color differentiation between the densities of the wood, which is kind of neat. That part's also, it seemed like it was more thick as well. But yeah, you can do that whole log. It really didn't take that much to do this one basket. It was maybe like a quarter segment of the log or so, maybe a little less than that. So quite remarkable out of a 6-foot log, what you can do. I have my gourd that I forgot to talk about. It's my water bottle. Holds like 3 liters of water, which is really heavy when it's full. So I haven't been filling it all the way. There's a lot of water out there in the Boundary Waters, which is really nice. There's never a time when I was thirsty. So pretty convenient. It's got a nice little cork that just pops on there. It's been getting more and more waterproof the more I twist it on. I've been tying it to the pack strap right there, and that's been working quite well. The first 2 days I was like holding it, and that was inconvenient. But yeah, it's a fun gourd. I feel like it's got some personality to it. I like swam out in the lake to get some water one day, and it was kind of floating there looking like a loon, and I was like, that's kind of neat. But it's getting kind of smelly on the inside. So I don't know if it's reached its shelf life, or I just need to keep letting it air out today some more. And then I've got a little sewing kit, just some extra materials. So leather, some more of the hemp, some of the wax canvas, like 3 needles, one of which I broke earlier today trying to sew that strap back on. So 2 needles now and a broken needle. And then some yarn and some thread, and then some more string, which is what I use to repair the strap because it's going to be a little bit more durable. I've got a fire kit, which is kind of fun. It's just an Altoids tin, and then again, this is where I didn't make the steel that I've been using, but somebody forged this piece of steel, and I've got a piece of flint that I actually found in the Boundary Waters on Ensign Lake, so I've been using that to start my fires. So feel free to check that out, or if you want to try to make a spark, don't burn down the building. What else is there? I think that's everything. I have maps and a compass and resources that have been really fun reading material also, in addition to making sure I don't get lost. Thanks to a bunch of these people are folks that have kind of given me ideas or inspiration, or said what you're doing is really stupid, and made it so I changed some piece of this project to make it better and more survivable. And then a couple folks up there, folks driving me around this big Northwoods. That's the one piece of these trails that's a little inconvenient, is if you walk from Ely to the Gunflint Trail, it's like a 3-hour drive to get back around. So you got to convince someone to drive 6 hours to get you. So I'm going to be presenting, once I do the border route pieces down at Ely Folk School, and I've got a friend that's going to come watch that presentation, and she's going to bring me back to town, which is really nice. And then, yeah, I hitchhiked on the Gunflint Trail, and Bonnie happened to pick me up last night. Really small town energy. The first car that passed me was her, and she dropped me off where I needed to be. So that was great. And then, yeah, the Ely Folk School hosted me, Chik-Wauk is hosting me, and then Northwoods Folk School is also hosting me. I did some sewing over at Mayhem Mending in Ely, which is a cool new sewing repair shop, because it's nice to be able to fix gear and keep it going longer in the woods. And then, of course, the volunteers of the Kekekabic Trail Chapter and the Border Route Trail Association, and then the North Country Trail Association, which is kind of the broader nonprofit that helps manage and promote and maintain these two trails in the Northwoods. Yeah, it takes a lot of manpower out there to cut all the brush, keep the trails open, fix spots that get broken. And in the wilderness stretches, you can't do that with machinery, so you can't use chainsaws or wheelbarrows or anything like that that makes it faster. You're out there with a crosscut saw or a hand saw, and there's a lot of trees, and every winter more trees fall down, and then every summer more trees blow down. But the Kekekabic Trail was surprisingly very few trees on it. Yeah, definitely some, but I only crawled under like 3, I think, in 40 miles, which wasn't bad. Most you could just step over. And then I used them as water drinking logs where I'd sit down and drink water. So, good way to stay hydrated too. One more piece of things that I didn't make, but I brought. My friend Phil made me 2 fish, a sturgeon and a northern pike. So I've been carrying them with me. I haven't been talking to them too much, which I'm really proud about. And I don't even have names for them yet, so if any of the young folks in the crowd want to come up with a good name for these 2 fish, I'm very open to the ideas. And then I had a friend on that sailing trip give me a big safety pin made out of copper. It's a blanket pin, so if I need to pin my blanket closed, I can. I haven't used it yet, but I have it.
You have it.
Yeah, nice. Well, my sister gave me a bunch of cookies. I didn't bring them all because they're really heavy, but I ate a bunch right before I left, so I kind of brought them with me. And then again, yeah, the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council provided funding for this project, so I couldn't have done it without them. So yeah.
How much did it cost you to make your shirt and your pants?
Yeah, they were pretty inexpensive because I had the material already. I think it's like maybe like $60 worth of fabric. Yeah.
Did you run into anybody else on the trail, on the Kek?
Yeah, I found one person.
Okay.
She was on the highest point by Travois Lake. Trava, yeah, I don't know the pronunciation on that one. Yeah, she was up there drying all her stuff because it was a really dewy morning that morning. And I was like, oh, there's a person. And she's like, oh, there's a person. There was one other set of footprints I saw. I'd seen hers, and then there was a big, large sized boot that I was also following, that a wolf was also following, and never saw that person, so I'm assuming that they came out on this end before me. She had been doing a yo-yo, so she did halfway and was coming back to the Ely side. So that's one solution people do to not have to hike the whole thing, so you have to do the other half the next year. Yeah, found 7 pieces of trash, so I feel like that's more than 0, but pretty good.
Have you weighed your pack,
Yeah.
kit, as they like to say?
Yeah, so I have 20 pounds of stuff that isn't food or my like electronic nonsense. Yeah. And
So
then,
your base is just 20?
yeah.
That's not bad at all.
No, I have way too much food though. So if people want some, please. Yeah, I ended up with like maybe like 18 pounds of food or something. So, yeah.
Do you purify your water?
No. That's, the boiling is the backup for like the real beavery areas. Yeah. The inside of the gourd is wax coated to kind of seal it some. So I can't put boiling water inside of it. But yeah, I can let it cool and pour it in. So, yeah.
So when you made the strips on the ash and you used the back end of the hammer to pound it through,
Yeah.
did you, and if you said it, I missed it, did you need the lines, like knife line it to get it, because they really look the same size?
Yeah, so they come off pretty consistently.
But you didn't run knife, I mean, just...
No, and some people do. Some people, cut it,
Cut it,
pre-cut it, or use like a circuit or hand saw, power saw,
So
and
you didn't need to
cut
do
like
that?
1-inch strips down it. I didn't do that, and it worked okay. I was using that crooked knife a lot, and I basically made them all the same width with that and scissors.
I wondered maybe the top of the head of the hammer could kind of fix the size.
It might, there might be something to that, yeah. But you'll see some people make like really big, like 3-inch strips when they take them off. I think the size of the log probably impacts it as well. It was kind of a narrow log that I was using. But yeah, a lot more to learn about that. I think that's one of the things I want to pursue after this is doing a couple more baskets.
So what was the Kekekabic opened up after the blowdown, which was 1990?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a number on that.
Years, so we were using that.
Yeah, actually, they got in there, the Forest Service got in there pretty quick,
fast.
both the CAC and the DRT to open them up, so I want to say within a couple of years, they have them open. And they did lift the restriction on the hand tools, they did use power tools to open both
It
of
was
those.
a
Yeah.
disaster.
Mhm.
We know.
But they had a real short window to be able to do that.
But yeah, nowadays it's in pretty great condition. Definitely worth checking out one of the ends. That's what I'd done before this trip, was like 5 miles in from each end. So I'd seen those, but I had never seen that middle stretch. So lots of ways to see the trail, even though it is kind of a long, continuous one. There's the cool Century Loop over here, and then there's a couple smaller loops on the Ely side that you can do as like an overnight trip or a day trip even. So good options, even though it's kind of a straight line. Yeah.
Is the tread pretty defined in those areas that have been burned over the years?
Yeah. Yeah,
You can tell where the trail is.
Yeah, I didn't feel lost at all. I'm pretty competent in the outdoors, so that definitely helps, but like, the big like exposed pieces of rocks all have like cairns on them going down. Had my phone as a map, had the map as a map, and there were a couple times when I was like, this might be kind of a beaver trail versus the trail. And I checked it then, and usually I was on the right one. There's one time when I had gone like 15 feet down the wrong one. But yeah, it's a pretty defined tread. There's a lot of pretty defined corridor when it's not in the burn areas. And a lot of the burn areas have grown up enough that there is 15 or 20 foot tall aspen already, and you've got that 6 foot corridor where the trail is going through. So you can kind of see it pretty well in those spots.
Is there much in the way of blue blazes?
There's blue flagging in places. No blazes in the wilderness. And I think that's kind of a Forest Service regulation on that.
Okay.
Yeah, no permanent signage is allowed. There's some weird old signposts out there, kind of towards the Ely side though, that it's like hand carved Kek on it, and it's like a beaver log that's supported by a bunch of rocks. But yeah, no blazes. Some of the thick spots, there's like flagging maybe 7 feet up in trees, which is nice.
Did you see any animals?
Yeah, so that was one of the things I learned with the shoes, is that they're very quiet, especially before I had the walking stick. I was basically silent walking through the forest, which is a really cool thing. And in like the first mile, this lynx and I almost collided on the trail because it didn't hear me and I didn't hear it. And we got like maybe like 15 feet apart from each other before it like saw me and jumped off into the woods, and then I saw it when it moved real quick. And that was super cool. And then we stared at each other, and I kind of walked a little bit further, and then it curved around and got back on the trail and continued down the trail. So a really neat experience, but that also showed me that I was like, I am way too quiet to be walking around in bear and moose country. So I started making more noise after that. but yeah, really, that was the main wildlife. Saw like 4 snakes, which were pretty cool. They also seemed like they didn't notice me as early as they do when you're walking with big hiking boots, which was neat. I don't know if that's a scientific statement. A lot of grouse out there. No moose, a lot of moose prints, a lot more moose prints than people prints. A fair number of like wolf scats, a couple sets of wolf tracks. Yeah.
No beavers?
There was one beaver right after I got water somewhere and didn't boil it. I saw a beaver swimming away. I was like, oh man. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Pretty easy finding decent campsite areas where you're sitting here, at least if you have a fire or something.
Yeah, so there's
Enough
designated
openings
sites.
or-
Yeah, there's designated sites along the trail. Yeah, a lot of like hiking specific sites, which is kind of cool. I was doing like 10-mile days, and I found a good site every 10 miles for sure. And there were kind of some in between that I was passing up. If you're hiking in the Boundary Waters, you can disperse camp, just not at a campsite, which is kind of neat. But if you're doing that, you can't have a fire. And if you're cooking in a pot over a fire, it's kind of critical to have the fire pit.
Yes.
So
Safety.
So yeah, I didn't camp in any of the non-campsite areas, but there were a couple kind of known locations where it's like you can sleep in this little meadow and it's pretty good. Yeah.
Good. Sounds good. Sounds wonderful.
When you were planning, did you have ideas of a fire ban came into place?
Yeah, so that was definitely something I was considering because kind of going into the summer, it was going to be a really bad fire year in Northland. And so I was going to just bring a stove if I had to. Yeah. I still cook in the pot.
So you had no tent?
No, yeah.
Okay. Just the tarp?
Yeah, just that and the tarp. And it worked pretty well. It was pretty rainy the other night, and yeah, it was diverting the rain. I was under this pretty nice cedar tree on Howard Lake, and it kept a lot of the rain off, and then anything getting through was not on me, which is really cool. The bigger issue is once I packed everything up and started, it was all the wet brush slapping me and going all in the basket. So I had some wet things because of that, but the cardboard fish are still in one piece and they were just in my basket. So that's kind of my meter. If they're wet, that's a problem.
You didn't choose May to do this instead of August for mosquitoes?
Yeah, so timing was to hopefully miss as many bugs as possible, hopefully miss the snow, and then hopefully miss like big thunderstorms.
September would be good.
Yes, September would be good.
For most part.
Yeah, it's like this week or next week was kind of the timelines I was looking at. Yeah. And yeah, definitely if you're gonna go hiking in the Boundary Waters the fall and like early spring are pretty good. You gotta miss the snow because the snow's pretty deep in the woods usually. But if you go in June, you get bit by a lot of bugs. Well, thank you all for coming, and feel free to check stuff out.